Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to pause for a moment and think about the last time you said yes when your heart whispered no. That moment when your lips formed the word yes, but your gut clenched, your energy sank, and a small voice inside you said, "Why did you agree to this?" We've all been there. And today I want to invite you to reconsider the way you treat the word no. No is not a rejection. No is a redirection. No is not the end of a relationship. It's the beginning of a more honest one. Most of us carry a silent, heavy burden, the illusion of obligation. We feel that we must say yes because it's polite, expected, or because we don't want to hurt someone's feelings. But let me ask you, how often does that yes come at the cost of your peace, your priorities, or your passion? When we say yes to everything, we unintentionally say no to ourselves. And here's the truth we rarely speak about. The guilt you feel when you say no isn't about the other person. It's about the story you've told yourself, that your worth is tied to approval, that your kindness is measured by your availability, that your value depends on how often you say yes. But what if I told you that a compassionate no is one of the most loving things you can offer? A no that says, "I honor you enough to be honest with you. I care about you enough not to give you a half-hearted yes. I respect both of us enough to be clear about my limits." You see, behind guilt is fear. Fear of disappointing, fear of being judged, fear of missing out. But life isn't built on avoiding discomfort. It's built on choosing what discomfort is worth it. The discomfort of guilt is temporary, but the discomfort of betraying yourself is lasting. Saying no doesn't require harshness. It requires clarity. Thank you for thinking of me, but I won't be able to. I appreciate the offer, but I need to prioritize other commitments. These words, spoken with warmth and certainty, are powerful tools of self-respect. And when you begin to align your no's with your values and purpose, you start to realize that every no you say is a yes to what truly matters, a yes to your growth, a yes to your peace, a yes to your calling. Example. So I invite you today to practice the art of saying no. Start small. Notice the stories your mind tells you, speak your no's with love, and observe how it creates space for the yeses that truly deserve your heart. The word no is one of the simplest in the English language, yet it carries incredible weight. For many of us, it feels like a door closing, an opportunity lost, or a connection severed. But in truth, no is one of the most powerful, freeing, and self-respecting words we can use. Learning to say no is not about being difficult or unkind. It's about understanding your own value, your limited energy, and your right to choose how you invest your time and attention. It's a form of self-care, of boundary setting, and of personal growth. When we look closely at why people struggle to say no, it often ties back to a misunderstanding of what the word actually represents. Culturally, many of us have been conditioned to associate no with negativity. From a young age, we're encouraged to be agreeable, to please others, to be accommodating. Saying yes is celebrated as generous and loving, while saying no is seen as selfish or cold. But this is a damaging misconception. Saying no isn't rejection, it's a redirection. It's a way of choosing the things that truly matter over those that don't align with your values, purpose, or energy in that moment. Imagine your time and energy as a limited resource. Every time you say yes to something that doesn't serve you, you take away time and energy from something that does. This is why understanding the power of no is so essential. It is a decision that allows you to protect what is most important to you. It's a filter that helps you remain focused on your goals, values, and personal well-being. Without this filter, we quickly find ourselves overwhelmed, overcommitted, and ultimately resentful. There's a misconception that saying no burns bridges. In reality, a well-communicated no strengthens relationships. It fosters mutual respect and honest communication. People may initially be surprised when you begin setting boundaries, especially if you've been someone who constantly says yes. But over time, those around you will learn to value your honesty and authenticity. And most importantly, you will learn to value it in yourself. Every no you say makes your yes more powerful. When you protect your time and energy by refusing things that aren't meant for you, you create space for opportunities, experiences, and people that genuinely align with your life's direction. It's not about rejecting others, it's about choosing yourself, your peace, and your priorities. When you say no from a place of clarity and kindness, it becomes an act of self-respect and personal empowerment. Mastering the art of no takes time. It involves unlearning deep-rooted habits of people-pleasing and overcoming the guilt that often follows. But with practice, you begin to recognize that no is not a barrier, it's a bridge, a way to move towards a more intentional, fulfilling life. Saying no is a form of power, not aggression. It is self-respect, not selfishness, and when used wisely, it becomes one of the most important words in your personal growth vocabulary. One of the biggest reasons people struggle to say no is because of something subtle but deeply ingrained: the illusion of obligation. This illusion is the belief that we are required to say yes to requests, favors, and expectations simply because they are asked of us. It's the silent, invisible pressure we place upon ourselves to meet other people's desires even when they conflict with our own needs, values, or priorities. And what makes this illusion so powerful is that it often goes unnoticed. We don't question it, we just carry it. From a young age, many of us are conditioned to be agreeable. We're taught that being liked, accepted, and valued means being available and accommodating. When someone asks for our time, our help, or our energy, there's an unspoken rule that good, kind, and considerate people say yes. Over time, this conditioning leads us to equate saying yes with kindness and saying no with guilt. And because we want to avoid discomfort, disapproval, or disappointing others, we fall into patterns of automatic agreement. The result is that most of the guilt we feel when we say no doesn't actually come from the other person. It comes from within us. It's born from the stories we've been told and the ones we continue to tell ourselves. We convince ourselves that if we say no, we'll be seen as rude, unhelpful, or selfish. We fear judgment, disconnection, or missed opportunities. But what we often fail to realize is that these obligations are rarely as fixed or as necessary as we believe. The illusion of obligation keeps us trapped in cycles of overcommitment. It convinces us that we don't have the right to protect our time, our energy, or our peace. It blinds us to the simple, undeniable truth that we are allowed to prioritize ourselves. Saying no doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you an honest one. It means you are aware of your limits and that you value your well-being enough to honor them. When we start to dismantle this illusion, we realize that most people respect clear, sincere boundaries more than false yeses given out of guilt. Authenticity strengthens relationships far more than constant availability. And in many cases, the disappointment we fear from others is either temporary or non-existent. Often, people appreciate honesty, even if it momentarily inconveniences them. Recognizing the illusion of obligation means pausing and asking yourself, am I saying yes because I genuinely want to, or because I feel like I have to? That simple question can change your entire perspective. It puts you back in control of your choices, rather than being led by invisible expectations. You begin to see that obligations you thought were mandatory were often assumptions you carried out of habit. By shedding this illusion, you liberate yourself from unnecessary guilt. You learn to give from a place of abundance, not obligation. And in doing so, you not only protect your own energy, but also show up more meaningfully and wholeheartedly in the moments and commitments you choose to embrace. Many of us have been conditioned to think of the word no as something negative, a rejection, a dismissal, a closing of a door. We often see it as an uncomfortable word that creates distance between people. But what if we could redefine no as a gift? What if, instead of seeing it as a barrier, we saw it as a bridge to clearer, healthier, and more authentic relationship? When used with intention and care, a thoughtful no has the power to bring clarity, deepen respect, and create space for genuine connection. When you say yes to everything, you dilute the value of your agreements. People may come to expect your availability without truly considering your needs or capacity. But when you learn to say no when necessary, you communicate something important, that your time and energy are valuable and that you're willing to be honest about your boundaries. This honesty can be refreshing in a world where people often agree out of politeness while silently feeling overwhelmed or resentful. A sincere no helps both you and the other person. For you, it prevents the inner conflict that arises when you commit to something that doesn't align with your priorities or emotional bandwidth. It frees you from overextending yourself and allows you to stay focused on the people, projects, and values that matter most. For the other person, a clear no eliminates false hope, confusion, or unmet expectation. It allows them to seek help, support, or resources elsewhere instead of waiting on a yes that wasn't genuine to begin with. What makes no a gift is the opportunity it creates for transparency. It opens the door to honest conversations about capacity, intention, and mutual respect. It teaches others that while you care about them, you're also committed to your well-being. And in return, it invites them to do the same. In this way, a no can actually strengthen relationships, not weaken them. People often appreciate honesty more than blind agreement because it builds trust and sets a foundation for authentic connection. Consider this. If you continually say yes to things you don't truly want to do, you risk showing up half-heartedly without full presence or enthusiasm. This can lead to frustration, resentment, and even damage relationships over time. But when you are honest about your limitations or desires, you can show up fully for the commitments you do accept, offering your best self instead of a fragmented, exhausted version. Saying no doesn't have to be cold or dismissive. It can be compassionate, kind, and clear. A simple, thoughtful response like, "I appreciate you thinking of me, but I'm unable to commit to this right now," acknowledges the other person's request while honoring your own boundaries. This balance between empathy and honesty is what turns no into a gift, one that offers clarity, preserves relationships, and nurtures your personal well-being. Ultimately, redefining no in this way helps cultivate a life of intention, integrity, and mutual respect. It reminds us that honesty, when delivered with kindness, enriches both our lives and the lives of those around us. Guilt is one of the most powerful emotions we experience when we say no. And behind that guilt, if we take the time to look closely, we'll often find fear. Fear is the root of the discomfort we feel when setting boundaries or declining requests. It quietly whispers in our ear that if we say no, we might disappoint someone, lose their approval, damage a relationship, or be seen as selfish or uncaring. And it's this fear-driven guilt that makes us overcommit, overextend, and eventually overexhaust ourselves. Many people aren't even fully aware that fear is the driving force behind their guilt. On the surface, it feels like kindness or duty. It disguises itself as being a good friend, a dependable coworker, or a loving family member. But beneath those labels is often a quiet, unspoken anxiety about what might happen if we honor our true feelings and say no. Will they be upset? Will they think less of me? Will I let them down? These fears keep us trapped in cycles of people-pleasing and self-sacrifice. Understanding this connection between guilt and fear is the first step to breaking free from it. When we recognize that our guilt doesn't necessarily mean we're doing something wrong, but rather that we're afraid of a particular outcome, we can begin to manage it differently. Guilt often acts like an alarm bell, but not every alarm signals danger. Some alarms are outdated and overly sensitive, ringing loudly over situations that pose no real threat. Fear thrives in assumptions. We assume people will be hurt, angry, or disappointed, and we imagine the worst possible reactions. But in reality, most people are far more understanding than we give them credit for, especially when our no is delivered with sincerity and respect. Even if there's momentary disappointment, it rarely leads to the lasting damage our fear predicts. People value honesty, and relationships built on authenticity endure far better than those built on constant, reluctant yeses. Another fear hidden behind guilt is the fear of losing opportunities. We worry that if we say no, we'll miss out on something important, a connection, an experience, or a potential future benefit. But not every opportunity is meant for us. And some invitations, if accepted out of guilt, actually pull us away from the things we truly want and need. Every no creates space for better yeses, and trusting that process requires courage and faith in your own path. To dismantle the hold that guilt and fear have over us, we must practice awareness. The next time you feel guilt about saying no, pause and ask yourself, what am I really afraid of here? Naming the fear reduces its power. It brings it out of the shadows and into the light, where it can be examined and released. Over time, this awareness builds emotional strength, allowing you to set boundaries with confidence and compassion. Learning to identify and embrace the fear behind your guilt isn't about becoming insensitive. It's about becoming authentic. It's about living in alignment with your truth instead of in reaction to your fears. And when you do, you'll discover a new kind of freedom. One where your decisions are made from clarity and intention, not fear-driven obligation. Many people avoid saying no because they fear how it might affect others. They worry that it will come across as harsh, cold, or dismissive. But the truth is, it's not the word no itself that creates conflict. It's how we deliver it. When you communicate with empathy, clarity, and sincerity, a no can feel thoughtful, kind, and even appreciated. This is where compassionate communication comes in. The art of expressing your boundaries in a way that honors both your needs and the feelings of the other person. Compassionate communication begins with intention. Before you respond, take a moment to center yourself and reflect on why you need to say no. Are you protecting your time, preserving your peace, or staying true to your values? Understanding your reason will help you communicate with calm conviction instead of defensiveness or guilt. When you're clear within yourself, your words carry more weight and are received more gracefully. A compassionate no isn't about the word itself. It's about the tone, the timing, and the message behind it. Instead of bluntly saying, no, I can't, you might say, thank you so much for thinking of me. I appreciate the opportunity, but I'm not able to commit to this right now. This simple shift acknowledges the other person's request while gently setting a boundary. It conveys care and respect while still honoring your own limits. People respond better when they feel seen and understood. That's why it's helpful to validate the other person's feelings or intentions before delivering your no. For example, you might say, I know how important this is to you, and I truly wish I could help. This shows empathy and reminds them that your decision isn't personal rejection, but a reflection of your current priorities and capacity. It helps maintain the relationship while still protecting your boundaries. It's also valuable to offer alternatives when appropriate. If you genuinely want to support someone but can't meet their exact request, suggesting another way to help or another person who might be available can soften the no. For instance, I'm unable to attend the event, but I'd love to hear about it afterward. Or, I can't take on this task, but perhaps might be able to assist. These small gestures show you still care, even if you can't say yes. Another important aspect of compassionate communication is body language and presence. When delivering a no in person or over a call, maintain eye contact, keep a calm tone, and listen to the other person's response. Be willing to hold space for their disappointment or reaction without immediately backtracking out of discomfort. Often, people simply want to feel heard and respected. Ultimately, compassionate communication is about balance. It's about being kind but firm, empathetic yet honest. It teaches us that we can care for others without sacrificing ourselves. It allows us to build healthier, more authentic connections based on mutual understanding, not silent resentment or unspoken obligation. When you learn to say no with compassion, you model a protect your well-being. You model a powerful example of healthy boundaries for others to follow. One of the most liberating realizations in life is understanding that every time you say no to something that doesn't serve you, you are saying yes to something else that does. Time and energy are finite resources, and every commitment you make takes up space in your mental, emotional, and physical world. When you stretch yourself too thin by agreeing to things out of guilt, fear, or habit, you leave very little room for what truly matters to you. The power of no lies in its ability to create that space. Space for peace, clarity, focus, and alignment. Many people underestimate how much of their stress, exhaustion, and frustration comes not from what they're doing, but from what they're doing that they didn't actually want to do. It's the energy drain of reluctant yeses, of obligations accepted without enthusiasm, and of time spent on things that don't nourish the soul. When you begin to say no to these misaligned requests, you instantly begin to reclaim your energy and redirect it toward things that uplift, inspire, and support your personal growth. This isn't about avoiding responsibility or never being there for others. It's about discerning where your yes holds genuine value. When you clear away the clutter of unnecessary commitments, you give yourself the chance to say yes to opportunities that align with your values, goals, and passions. You might finally have time to work on a personal project you've been postponing, to nurture relationships that truly uplift you, or to simply rest, which in itself is a powerful, often overlooked yes to your well-being. The clarity that comes from saying no also sharpens your focus. When you're not constantly reacting to external demands, you have the space to reflect on what truly matters to you. You become more intentional about how you spend your time and with whom. Your calendar stops being a list of obligations and starts to become a reflection of your priorities. And in that space, you rediscover a sense of control over your own life. It's important to remember that every yes carries a weight. If you agree to something that drains you, it's not just your schedule that gets crowded, it's your mind and your spirit. Too many of these weighty yeses lead to burnout, resentment, and disconnection from your authentic self. But every no you give to a misaligned request is a yes to your peace, your growth, and your future. By protecting your space in this way, you build a life that feels lighter, freer, and more meaningful. It allows you to show up fully for the things you do choose to engage in, because your yes is no longer an automatic response, it's a conscious, empowered decision. And in that decision-making lies your freedom. The freedom to honor your truth, to prioritize what matters, and to live a life by design rather than by. Saying no isn't just about turning something down. It's about opening up to everything you were meant to say yes to. Like any meaningful skill, learning to say no with confidence and compassion is a practice. It's not something most people master overnight, especially if you've spent years or even a lifetime conditioned to say yes out of politeness, fear, or guilt. Changing deeply rooted habits takes time, patience, and self-awareness. But the beauty of practice is that it allows you to start small, adjust, and improve over time without expecting perfection. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes to honor your own boundaries and communicate them with ease. When you first begin setting boundaries and saying no, it might feel uncomfortable, even awkward. You might stumble over your words, feel the sting of guilt, or worry about disappointing others. That's normal. Growth often begins in discomfort. The key is not to let that initial uneasiness convince you to abandon your boundaries. Instead, see each situation as an opportunity to practice, to notice what emotions come up, how you respond to them, and what you might do differently next time. Start with low-stakes situations. Practice saying no to small requests where the consequences are minimal. It might be declining an invitation to a casual event you're not interested in, or saying no to a minor favor when your schedule is already full. In these moments, pay attention to how you feel and how the other person responds. Most of the time, you'll realize that people are more understanding than your fears predicted. Each of these moments builds confidence and resilience, gradually making it easier to say no in more emotionally charged or high-pressure situations. Another aspect of this practice is learning to embrace silence and discomfort. Often, people rush to fill the space after saying no, offering excessive explanations or apologies out of fear of offending. But you don't owe anyone a lengthy justification for honoring your boundaries. A simple, clear, and kind response is enough. Practicing sitting in that space, trusting that your decision is valid, strengthens your self-respect and confidence. It's also helpful to reflect on your experiences. After each moment where you set a boundary, ask yourself what you learned. Was there a part of the conversation that felt easier than expected? Was there something you'd like to phrase differently next time? This reflective practice turns each experience into a valuable lesson, allowing you to refine your approach and grow more comfortable with each no you offer. With time, you'll notice a shift. Saying no won't feel like a confrontation, but rather a natural expression of your needs and priorities. You'll begin to trust your ability to navigate these conversations with grace, balancing empathy for others with care for yourself. What once felt difficult will become second nature because practice turns intention into habit. And in this practice lies a deeper lesson, that boundaries aren't walls meant to isolate you, but bridges that help you build healthier, more authentic relationships with others and with yourself. The more you honor your own boundaries, the more you give permission to those around you to do the same, creating a culture of honesty, respect, and mutual care.